By now, you should be realizing there are organizations and people that are not quite what they make themselves out to be. Anyone that still believes in royalty, religion, science and governments is a blind fool, and this blind faith has continually got people killed, as all their histories show. This is because, as I keep teaching you, all of these organizations or these institutions are in the control of descendants of the original children of hell. When they don't change their way, the destination you always get to will always be the same. That is why you have allowed them to open the gates of hell once again, and it all starts deep within your subconscious minds. Institution means a society or association established especially for charitable, social or educational purposes. All the organizations or institutions I just mentioned have used you and others for their own gain, and they teach you what they want you to know and not what you must know. All your royal families receive charity from you because you foolishly believe they are more special than you. The charity they originally received was a royal tax to pay for the sick because of the disease their scientists or alchemists spread with their meats, because all livestock was owned by royalty. Injecting or infesting the meat has always been one of the ways to spread sickness and disease. CJD is one clear example, and recent meat scandals are others. This article teaches that the British establishment kept quiet about a deadly bacteria in chickens, and this has now led to many diseases throughout the body and mind. This article teaches that they still inject meat with disease-causing agents. It was of the arrest of 20 French scientists for injecting meat that went back into the food industry before the recent meat scandal of Europe. Do you honestly believe a righteous God with the most brilliant intelligent mind that created all the good and beautiful in our universe will then create people that were more special than others? Anyone can see this would cause problems, and this is why these people always fought amongst themselves for superiority and used all your ancestors to fight and kill each other and do their dirty work for them. All your religious leaders were the same. They used and tricked you to honour and worship the devil, and fed you elements of the devil, which affected many minds, and this is why paedophilia was rife throughout Europe. They, like your royal leaders, also used science on you and allowed experiments to be carried out all over the world, especially on the Africans. All your donations were then invested in all the businesses of their friends and relations, which still continues to this day. They also got your sons and daughters to fight and kill each other and others, and sponsored royalty and their royal wars, when they should have been teaching we are all equal. Taking sides only escalates the violence. Jesus taught us many things, and one of his many messages was we didn't need the church. This is why he taught. Matthew chapter 6 verse 5. And when you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in synagogues and at street corners, that they may be seen by men. But when you pray, go into your room and shut the door, and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. The Nag Hammadi Gospels repeat this message and also teach of what Jesus prophesied about this organization when he said, Now then, listen to the things of which they are telling you in a mystery, and guard them. Do not tell them of the sons of this age, for they shall blaspheme you in these ages, for they are ignorant of you, but they will praise you in knowledge, and they will cleave to the name of a dead man, thinking that they will become pure, but they will become greatly defiled, and they will fall into a name of error, and into the hand of an evil, cunning man, and a manifold dogma, and they will be ruled heretically. And there shall be others of those outside your number, who name themselves bishops and also deacons, as if they have received their authority from God. They bend themselves under the judgment of their leaders. These people are dry canals. These times are upon us, and the evil, cunning man is the false prophet that Jesus warned us of in the Bible. Having watched the first part of my documentary, you will now know I have been guided by the Spirit of Jesus. Prophet, a person who foretells future events, especially under divine inspiration, a revealer or interpreter of the divine will of God, a religious leader, a founder of a religion, a preacher or teacher of a cause. Interpret, to explain the meaning of, to find out the meaning of. This is why they created secret societies, to keep secrets among their own kind or like-minded people. And the Vatican has a secret organisation at the top, and it now seems obvious that paedophilia is not the only secret they try to hold on to. There are also people that believe that no matter what they do, that it is right, and if you don't like it, so what, and will not be told otherwise. Now you see what Jesus said himself, because it is documented or written in the Bible that he did say what I just shown you, when he said, "Go to your room and pray." Therefore I cannot be accused of making it up. Knowing this will make it clear of how cunning certain individuals are when they teach. Here is what the Pope had to teach in his 2015 New Year's Day homily. Without the Church, Jesus Christ ends up an idea, a moral teaching, a feeling. So is he saying, to understand Jesus, we must continue going through ritualistic dogma every week that most people don't understand? Are we to accept the interpretations of the priest, and once you accept it, it becomes part of your opinions, which generate your thoughts, which control your life? This means that every week millions of Christians get preached to differently, because just like bad teachers in schools, you get bad priests. So if the priest doesn't understand Jesus or doesn't want to, then you won't, because they teach their own words and not the words of Jesus Christ our Saviour. Just like the scientists that don't believe in cures and stop searching, many priests believe they have the truth and they stop searching. Neither of them have the capacity of mind to see they are on the wrong path, especially the priests who believe they are carriers of a messenger's message, who taught of peace, love and harmony. Why then are we in a world of war, hatred and revenge? Someone has taken us to the wrong place. This is not the place Jesus promised us of. Our leaders must be wrong, because I am 100% sure Jesus never got it wrong. When we are taught the words of Jesus, there would be no need for the ritualistic rigmarole every week. But they don't tell you the real reason why they get you to go to church every week, and it is not to worship our God, but theirs. The Pope also said, without the Church and her guidance, our relationship with Christ would be at the mercy of our imagination, our interpretation, our moods. I am 100% sure that if most people read the New Testament and the Nag Hammadi Gospels, they would be in no doubt that you don't need the church to get to God our Creator. Then, when you study the church's history, you see that in the past the followers have been guided by evil, and now this includes this Pope, as Jesus predicted. He then said, "It is impossible to love and belong to Christ without loving and belonging to the church, because the church is God's family, who brings Christ to humanity." The excerpt from the Nag Hammadi Gospels and the piece in the Bible are totally the opposite of the Pope's thinking. He is using his own imagination. It is clear what Jesus thought of the Catholic Church. The Pope is meant to be a follower of Jesus and not a successor, and not use his own words, but the words of Jesus. But it seems that he likes to use his own words to confuse the followers of this religion all the time. Another scenario was when he was asked what he thought of homosexuality. He said, "Who am I to judge?" Well, what do all his priests do every week at the altar, and when they take confession and hand out punishment? The Pope allegedly is God's spokesperson on earth, and 1.2 billion or so Christians or Catholics rely on his every word. So when asked about homosexuality, he said he couldn't judge. We know God denounces homosexuality because over 2,000 years it was written in the Bible that God said so, and these and all the others he describes will not enter heaven. Neither the immoral, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor homosexuals, nor thieves, nor revellers, nor robbers, nor the greedy, nor the drunkards. When you accept any of these traits, you follow the God that created them. This is why Freemasonry have the saying, "I will accept only when I can verify." Reading the Bible or having it taught to us properly would have verified that God, the creator of all the good, didn't accept the way the world is going, because he never meant it to be that way. That is why he sent his Son to teach us of the power deep within us all, our own subconscious mind, the place where all our thoughts are stored and where they come from. Our mind can be severely altered by chemicals, words, sayings and slogans, and visual effects, and this was used against you when they changed the blood of Christ to wine, alcohol that causes all problems and makes people commit many mistakes. The first mind-destroying chemicals were in the apple, as my first documentary proves, elements that can also make alcohol, cider, as most fruits can. And many of our world's problems are caused by people that are intoxicated with chemicals made by science that receives its knowledge from the devil, as I also proved. But just to make sure you understand clearly what is going on around you, here is what Jesus was to teach. For the fight is not against human foes, but against cosmic powers, against the superhuman forces of evil. Ephesians 6:12. This is the entity that created the apple, that caused all mind and body sickness and disease and disorders, as my extensive research uncovered. Religion, belief in a superhuman being or beings, a personal God controlling the universe and entitled to worship and obedience. This is the entity, the superhuman being, the cosmic serpent, that science and religion have tricked, forced and manipulated you to follow. This is why the serpent is on the uniforms as an emblem of all ambulance staff, and it is used as the emblem of all pharmacists and the World Health Organization. They believe the serpent has curative powers. This is why in traditional Christianity the perennial, everlasting, ever-flowing and unceasing philosophy was that the way of happiness and the way to salvation were to be sought not in the external environment but in the individual state of mind with regard to the environment. Sadly, people still follow this organisation even after all the horrific crimes they have committed, because they feel that without faith they will not enter the gates of heaven. But faith alone will not get you into heaven. The way to heaven is guided by truth, and that way is the way of Jesus, the torchbearer of the truth. The only way to get there is to believe in Jesus, or what he was teaching, and not some so-called holy man or dogmatic ritualistic religion. The Pope is first a keeper of the faith or protector of the faith, and not a keeper or protector of secrets. This means he must uphold the faith by not breaking it himself. He is meant to be free of sin, so being deceptive or dishonest or not speaking out against sin is not being free of sin. This is because to keep quiet about sin allows it to continue and to spread. It also means that when someone commits a sin against God, the creator of all the good, he is meant to speak out and defend God of all the good by repeating his words, the words that are written in the Bible, as I taught you, and not use his own. We are meant to live by God's words and not the words or opinions of the Pope, who has heretical opinions, as Jesus warns. This is where manipulation has crept in, because we are not following the words of God, the creator of all the good, or his son, but of all the past and current popes, who believe that they are the successor to Jesus and not his follower. Heretic means unorthodox, which means not acknowledged, and when you understand what I am teaching, this whole organisation never acknowledged the words of God, the creator of all the good, or his son, because if they did, they would have told us why we were warned not to eat the apple, and they wouldn't have kept secrets. Anyone that wouldn't tell their children to cross the road properly and withhold vital information from them will continue to witness them being killed. My God, the creator of all the good, wouldn't do that. That is why his son came into our world to teach us, but his message has been kept from you. If that wasn't bad enough, the Pope made other deceptive remarks during his New Year's homily that are just as manipulative. He said, without the Church, Jesus is at the mercy of our imagination. What the Pope and all the priests fail to teach the followers of the Catholic Church, who are alleged followers of Christ, is that what Jesus thought of the Church himself. And I am sure the many followers of Jesus would not have come to where we are now if they used their own mind or imagination. Looking around, many of the people I know would see we have arrived at the wrong destination because we have been following the wrong shepherds and are soon to be like lambs to the slaughter if we don't have a change of mind or start using our own imagination. Most people believe that if God was to forgive the priests for all the wrongdoing and evil, that he would also forgive them. But where does forgiveness end? And this is also deception, because which God are they referring to? There are two gods, as my first documentary proves. Does it go all the way up to murder, as the original founders of the Catholic religion would have you believe? Well, the answer is obvious, because one of the 10 commandments is, "Thou shalt not commit murder." Therefore, God, the creator of all the good, is not going to allow a group of people to kill his son and forgive them and then make it a sin for everyone else to commit murder. All murder is a sin, so the creators of the Catholic Church were murderers when they murdered all the Gnostics, and this trait still continues to this day. The Catholic Church murdered most of the true followers of Christ, and are still murdering many hundreds of millions by not passing on the billions of charitable donations collected by the congregations each week. They also allow the sickness, disease, pain, suffering and torture and inevitable death to continue by withholding the truth or the opinions of God, the Creator of all the good, and His Son, Jesus, our Saviour. What is the Pope saying? That we must first go through the most corrupt and vile organisation on the planet, an organisation full of paedophiles, rapists, murderers, money launderers, thieves, cheats and liars, to get to the Son of God. And this is the only way to receive God, the Creator of all the good. As I said, it is deceptive what they teach. When they mention God, they don't tell you which one. A church that is also full of devil worshippers and has one at the top, once again, is the only way to God, the Creator of all the good, and our salvation. You and you alone are the key to your own salvation. This is why Jesus taught his followers. Salvation were to be sought not in the external environment, but in the individual's state of mind. Your own mind. Therefore, you are the own creator of your destruction or salvation. This is why they use chemicals, words, sayings and slogans and visual effects to trick you, and this includes the Vatican. This is what the offering of the Eucharist is. It tricks you that wine is okay to drink and that bread is okay to eat, when Jesus himself warned, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. And he then said, heed my warnings, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. God of all the good did not send his Son to be sacrificed. He sent him to teach you, and for this he was tortured, butchered and slaughtered, and his great name was then used to fool, trick and manipulate you. The Pope also says our faith is not an abstract doctrine or philosophy, but a vital and full relationship with a person, Jesus Christ, who lives among us and can be encountered inside the Church through her sacraments. To call Jesus Christ an ordinary person and not a God is heresy and a deception, and our faith is not a relationship with anyone, but a way of life, a way that Jesus Christ our Saviour came to teach us, but has been denied to us by the Catholic Church that used his great name. It was the teachings or doctrines of Jesus Christ that the Catholic Church was meant to be founded on, but they even kept those secret from you and tried to have them destroyed. This man is very deceptive and manipulative, and we are being led by the imagination and interpretation and are at the mercy of the Pope, and he is denying you the way of Christ. The sacraments in the Catholic Church are baptism, penance, punishment usually consisting of prayer for wrongdoing, and I thought this hypocrite said he was not a judge, or who am I to judge? Confirmation, the Eucharist, holy orders, matrimony, marriage. The consecrated elements of the Eucharist are bread and wine, especially the bread, and we now know what the elements of the Eucharist contain, the same elements as the apple, and we also know who created the apple. As I said earlier, when you genetically modify foods and change the elements, you can change mind, body and spirit of the individual. This is called transmutation. Hermetic, protected from outside forces of or belonging to alchemy, a magic power of transmutation to change from one substance into another, the supposed change of one species into another, or one organism cell into another. Science was allowed to do this at the altar through the sacraments in so-called honour of Jesus. This is known as transubstantiation, to change from one substance into another, a change of essence, the conversion of the whole Eucharist into the body and blood of Christ. The sacraments trick you to receive the body and blood of the devil. This is because the sacraments are made up of the elements of the apple, and the cosmic serpent, one of the many forms of the devil, is the one that made the apple. Therefore he controls the minds of those elements. The wine is a liquid sugar, one of the elements from the apple, and the bread is made with parabens and yeast, a fungus. The Vatican would have known because our ancients knew, and they called yeast Saccharomyces cerevisiae, means sugar mold or sugar fungus. Saccharose being combining from sugar, myces being fungus. This is proof that this organism or creation grew on the apple and all fruits and sugars, including grapes, because they all contain sugar. And yeast grows on all sugars. This is why sugar has over 57 disguises in our foods today, even the most strongest of them, grape concentrate. This Pope should know. He was a food technician before coming Pope. So why doesn't he speak out when science is teaching that sugar is a nutrient? A nutrient is good for the organism, and it is clear with all the recent evidence the only organism that sugar is good for. The Pope also denounced that Jesus was a spirit, and this is the foundation of Christianity, but the Vatican never followed his teachings, as I am showing you. The sacraments were introduced into the Catholic faith by a Sadducee Pope, and this Pope is beginning to sound like one himself.
Gesù è uno spirito. Gesù non è uno spirito. Gesù è una persona, è un uomo.
The Pope said, some ask, is Jesus a spirit? He then said Jesus is not a spirit. Jesus is a person, a man. John chapter 4, 21 to 26. The true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit. So by the Pope's own words, he is not a true worshipper of God. The people that Jesus came to speak out against were the Pharisees and Sadducees. Sadducee means a member of a sect among the Jews arising in the 2nd century who adhered to the written law to the exclusion of tradition and denied the resurrection from the dead, existence of spirits, etc. This was the same time the book The Golden Ass, a book of black magic telling the story of Isis and how the apple appeared in our world through the mind of Isis, or Eve, as you know her in the Bible. This is what secularism is tricking you to do, and when you deny spirits, how do you think the secret will work? Secularism relating to the present world or to things not spiritual or sacred. When you remove the light from the world, it will soon become dark and sinister, as it did in Roman times, a time that was controlled by the ancestors of all your world leaders. Panorama, an investigative program in Britain, once filmed world leaders attending a black satanic mass, and the Pope in 1976, Pope Paul VI, confided to a shocked audience that the smoke of the devil has entered the very sanctuary of St. Peter's Cathedral. He also stated that he had knowledge of a midnight hour black satanic mass being conducted at the altar. Many previous popes referred to the Freemasons as a grouping of secret societies in the kingdom of Satan. One group of people have brought their reign of terror, torture, disease and death around our globe many times. They brought you their royal empire, their religious empire, and now their scientific empire, being championed at the front of the British and now American empires. Their science was brought around the world many, many times, and one such time was the 13th century when Isaac the Blind brought their experiments to the West, and along came lupus and cannibalism. And my documentary proves that cannibalism, as all their diseases, can be induced by chemicals, the first being the ones in the apple. Their new religion, secularism, has been brought to our world by George Jacob Holyoake, who is of this group of people also. How has this been allowed to happen? Jesus did warn us when he said, John chapter 8, verse 44, "You are of your father the devil, and your will is to your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning, and has nothing to do with the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks according to his own nature, for he is a liar and the father of lies. But because I tell you the truth, you do not believe me. Which of you convicts me of sin? If I tell the truth, why do you not believe me? He who is of God hears the words of God. The reason why you do not hear them is that you are not of God." There is a new ideology being spread by secularists of oneness that is teaching that there are no wrongs or right, just two different ends of the scale of nature. This is similar to their trickery with truth and lies, which they say are just opinions. These people believe that their God has an all-seeing eye, but my God has many, and he sees through the hearts and minds of all those who go in search of the truth, the honest people of our world. I am sure there was many a good priest shouting and screaming to be heard, but as with every other organisation that kept secrets, they were silenced. But it is what Jesus our Saviour predicted in the Nag Hammadi Gospels. It would become an organisation controlled by an evil, cunning man that will have people working for it that bow down to their leader and are as much use as a dry canal. All they seem to do is babble on and preach ritualistic, dogmatic bullshit, and not the true message of Jesus, which was to protect your mind from this ritualistic, dogmatic bullshit. The world must now see that the false prophet is amongst us, and this proves one of many prophecies of Jesus, and it also verifies the warnings from his mother when she appeared to the children in Fatima. She taught them of the First and Second World War and the infiltration of evil in the Vatican, all caused by one group of people and one organisation, the Freemasons. I, like many of you, have made many mistakes, and this is because we were all born into an imperfect world. I am being guided by Jesus our Saviour. I am a child of the light, and there are many like me now on earth, that God, the Creator of all the good, has sent into our world to save it once again, and to rightify all their wrongs, and to make it perfect and whole, as it was in the beginning. I was born in a place that the Bible teaches is the beast, and that was in the heart of the empire, the British Empire, that forced the knowledge of the devil on our world. This knowledge they called science. Their royalty, and all your royalty, and science and the rule of law has allowed these people to enforce the way of hell on earth. I now know why I was born amongst them, and all my life I never wanted to be there, and attempted to leave many times, but I was drawn back to go there. Now I know why. I am a witness for God, the creator of all the good, and his Son, our Saviour, who is teaching me and guiding me to unearth all these truths. The reason why I had to stay in Britain was because the Antichrist is British, as I will now prove.